Okay, it says we are recording. So welcome everyone. Welcome to AOLE 2. This is your final week of AOLE 2. We are really, super lucky. We've got Mary Watkins with us today, who's an ex-primary school teacher, who's had experience, who's going to tell us about TTC Maruru in Rwanda. But she's just come off a national radio show to speak to me in my back room. So we're really lucky to have Mary with us today. Hi, Mary. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Good to be with you.
So you're just on Talk Sport and
Yeah.
Hawksby and Jacob.
I did indeed. Yeah, talking about the rugby that I'm involved with in Rwanda.
So we're going to touch on that in a moment. But we've got a bit of a presentation here to go through. So Mary has had loads of experience over in Rwanda, and she's going to share that with us today.
Okay, so first of all, where is Rwanda? Well, it's in Eastern Africa, and you can see it's that tiny little country marked with the yellow arrow. Usually you'll find when you look at maps of Africa that Rwanda is too small to write the word Rwanda on it. You might get RW. It's actually approximately the same size as Wales, and the map of the British Isles that you can see on the right hand side is to scale, which shows you how huge Africa is. But the population is 12 million compared with about 3 million in Wales.
Wow.
Zooming in on Rwanda, you can see that it's bordered to the north by Uganda, and then there's Tanzania, Burundi and DR Congo around it. It's a landlocked country, but there is a huge lake, Lake Kivu, in the far west. TTC Maruru, which is the college that you'll be learning lots about and linking up with, is in Ruzizi district in the very far west. And you can actually see a little black dot on the map above Ruzizi, right on the edge of the lake. And that is where TTC Maruru is. So a little bit about Rwanda then. It's famous for its mountain gorillas, and it's a popular tourist destination for that. Stunning landscape with terraced land. They will tend to use a lot of the land for growing crops because they've got such a large population. So if you like Yorkshire tea, that's grown in Rwanda. It's very hilly, very mountainous. There's, as well as the Volcanoes National Park where the gorillas live, this is the Nyungwe rainforest, which is supposedly has the source of the River Nile. So there you go, a few pictures to introduce you to Rwanda. Now, back in September 2013, I headed out to Rwanda with VSO, Voluntary Service Overseas, which is an organization I strongly recommend. I had a fantastic time. And I was, it's a bit of a mouthful, but a methodology and resources advisor. And I was based at a teacher training college, a TTC, called TTC Maruru, which was run by a Catholic organization called the Marist Brothers.
So this is the organisation we're going to be linking with at the end of the week with Diodone.
VSO had built a large classroom called a Teachers Resource Centre, which was my base. And I had all 500 students every week would come and visit me. And I would take a lesson, basically teaching them how to improve their teaching by using teaching aids and using teaching resources. So this is one of my classes outside the Teacher Resource Centre. This is Diodone, who you will get to know very well. The project that I was doing was working with local teachers and the student teachers to improve their teaching, but it wouldn't have been sustainable if I was just doing that and then I left after a year. So what I was actually doing was training Diodone, who was going to be the tutor that would take on the work once I'd left.
Always smiling. He's just like you, Mary, is always smiling in pictures.
He's a really lovely guy. The students that I was working with in Rwanda, the primary education is actually, they do teach in subjects. So you will have primary teachers who are just teaching maths and science, just teaching languages, and so on. And they'd also introduced nursery education in Rwanda. And it had just been introduced the year that I went there. And to be honest, they really didn't know what they were doing. Every week we would trot over to the primary school, Maruru Primary, and the student teachers would have a go at delivering a teaching practice lesson to the students. But there were 2 nursery classes. This is nursery 2, and they all sat at massive desks that were way too big for them. So you can see little eyes would peep over the top, little legs would dangle. They couldn't actually, you can't really see it very clearly here, but they can't actually reach those desks. If they tried to lean forward and touch the desk, they'd fall down in the gap between. So the desks were completely inappropriate. And then for nursery 1, it was even worse because the kids were all sat on the floor. And you would have, well, you can imagine the first 20 minutes was okay, but after about 2.5 hours of sitting on the floor, these 3- and 4-year-olds were all over the place.
Yeah.
So the students would often say to me, how can we teach them? Because they were pretty unteachable, to be honest. And I quickly came to the conclusion that what we needed were appropriate furniture. So I had a friend in a school in Ebervale, and they raised money for me, and we bought some furniture and we had it made by a local carpentry group. And this is me drawing some sort of shapes and alphabet and that sort of thing on the table, ready for the kids. This is Valens, one of my students, and now we stood a chance. So we had a load of bottle tops, and this was a counting lesson. So the kids had to, they were doing 5, they had to count out the number of bottle tops to 5 and so on. So now the lessons were a little better anyway. This is the ECE, the Early Childhood Education Group. And we were making toys and games. In this case, we were making dolls out of rice sacks, old rice sacks, for the kids to play with. And this is one of my former students, a guy called John, who, when he'd finished at the college, he went back to his village in a really, really remote area. And the children there didn't go to nursery because the nearest school was miles away and it was just too far for them to walk. So he'd contacted me and he said he wanted to set up his own nursery. And anyway, to cut a long story short, we managed to set up St. Gazita's Nursery School, which he's the very proud head teacher of now.
Oh, wow.
And this is a video, Nick. I'm not sure whether you can play this. This is the children. The last time I visited, this is what greeted me. Maybe.
If I come out of it, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Normally, if you hover down the bottom of the screen, it will play.
Might be because we're recording as well.
Normally, if you go down to the bottom of the picture, you should.
Here we go.
There we go. They're actually saying, if we get it to play, welcome, welcome, how do you do?
Welcome, how do you do?
Yeah. Yeah, so anyway, that was what greeted you when you were. I was actually in a car at the time and they came out. And we had this welcome, welcome, how do you do? Happy to greet you, my friend. Welcome, welcome, how do you do? So these are the kids of St. Gazita's Nursery. And this was another school that we funded furniture and all sorts for, which I think you can see in the next picture. Yeah. So here we go. And that's me the last time I visited, which was in 2019, I think, visiting the little kids there. Okay, now the other thing that happened in that year when we were staying at TTC Maruru, this is Brother Prote, who was the principal of the college, and he used to regularly invite us over to the community house for a beer. And he got chatting to us one night and decided that because we were Welsh, we must be good at rugby. Told us we were rubbish at football as a country, and but we must be good at rugby, and persuaded Glyn after a few beers to set up a rugby team. They had one rugby ball in the college. He'd assured Glyn that no more than 15 to 18 students were going to turn up. But then at mass at about 6 o'clock in the morning, he announced to all of the students that Mr. Glyn would be teaching rugby during time of sport this afternoon, and all are welcome. So this was the first session, and it was hilarious. Wow. It was just more and more turned up. And what you can see there is actually about a quarter of the students, because they completely encircle him. And he had around 200 with one rugby ball, which was
one ball. Wow.
Was very entertaining from my point of view. But I think I gave him a thumbs up, just said, "You're doing very well, dear. You're doing very well." So that was the beginning of rugby at TTC Maruru. They went from strength to strength. It's okay, the next one. And this was actually the team. Just after we left, we managed to get some kit out for them because most of the students only had one set of clothes that they would wear for PE, and they were complaining to us that they were getting ripped. So Caldecott Rugby Club donated one of their old strips for us, and this was what the team still play in Caldecott kit. And they made it all the way. They were 4th in the end overall in the secondary schools competition for the whole of Rwanda. So they did very well. Now, we wouldn't have been able to manage it on our own. There was a charity called Friends of Rwandan Rugby, which was formed in 2004 by 2 women, Emma Rees, who had been a VSO volunteer, and her partner Dina, who's an Australian rugby player. And they set up the charity using a guy called Commander, Tassis Commander, who was actually Emma's student when she was teaching in Rwanda in VSO in 2001. And she brought her rugby ball to Rwanda with her, and she taught the kids. It's gone on from strength to strength, and from Commander's point of view, he's had a fantastic time. Not last year now, the year before, because he's president of the Rwandan Rugby Federation, he got to go out to the World Cup. So there he was, pictured with the World Cup. And he was also delighted to meet Nigel Owens when he was out there as well. So this is the chairman. He's also the program manager for the charity Friends of Rwandan Rugby. Now, a lot of people ask, why do we get involved with rugby in Rwanda? Because the charity was a charity that we supported when we were out there. But when we went back to Rwanda in 2018 to work, we heard the charity was folding. Dina and Emma, it was just become too much for them. They didn't have enough hard time anymore. They got a young family. So they were getting rid of the charity. They were folding it. So we took it on. I'm sure you've all read the text at the bottom there, so I won't go into that, but that is some of the reasons why rugby is very important in Rwanda. What the charity does is we employ 10 rugby development officers that work around Rwanda. So this is a picture of the guys. We did actually have a female rugby development officer, but she got offered another job with an NGO. So we're still on the lookout for another female RDO to replace her. But at the moment, we got these 10 guys working all the way around. In Ruzizi district, we've got Donasian. For some reason, his photo's not there. I don't know why. And he was one of our students originally from TTC Maruru. Every year we run tours. Sadly, last year was the first year we missed for obvious reasons. And what we do is we go to a new area of Rwanda and we introduce rugby. We work with 4 schools. So some pictures from the tour. This is Don from Port Talbot, who actually at the time was studying coaching at Cardiff at the university. And he came out with us, was one of our rugby coaches working in an area called Namasheki, which was the area that I lived in actually in 2018. The end of the week culminates with a tournament. So we work with 4 primary schools. We have 8 teams, 4 boys teams, 4 girls teams, and they play off in a tag tournament at the end. So this was the photo taken at the end of the tournament. And this is the sort of thing that we get up to when we get out there. We work with kids, we throw a ball around, and we just teach them, you know, a few things about rugby. Yeah, and we also, on the next slide, we take it out with us. So we collect kit. This was the this was the trip in 2019 to Rwanda, and basically our luggage is all kit. The people going out there, they're allowed to use their 10-kilogram hand luggage allowance for their own stuff. But pretty much the allowance, which is around about 46 kilograms per person, we take care. And most of what we take out is donated from Welsh clubs. We've got a huge support and following from Welsh clubs. We've got loads and loads and loads of kits and balls out there. And
usually if we're on campus, we'd ask if any students had any links to rugby clubs to get in touch with me, and I can put you in touch with Mary, because all kit definitely helps.
Yeah, it does. And not only that, we're pretty good at sharing it on social media, so you can follow your team. We arranged a Bedlinog Nelson derby a couple of years ago, which caused a lot of excitement on Twitter, so people can see where their kit ends up. It's nice to to follow it. This is the list of teams within Wales that have donated their kit over the last few years, so you can see there's a huge number. It's great, but there's always room for more.
It's funny seeing this picture, because we've been looking at health and well-being and the importance of it in the curriculum, and you can see just what a difference sport can make to young lives. I mean, not just in Wales, but around the world as well. You know?
Yeah, and also to the people going out there as well, because that young lad was 18-year-old Luke, who wouldn't say boo to a goose when we get out there, but he was fab, absolutely superb, and he gained so much from it. It was fantastic. Luke pictured there actually came out on an additional tour that we did in 2019, because the Silverbacks, because Rwanda is now part of World Rugby, they were invited to take part in a qualifying match for the 2023 World Cup. So just as the 2019 World Cup was finishing, we were there for the final. The next World Cup is starting, and the Silverbacks were playing Ivory Coast at the end of November. They are absolutely hammered, but they ranked something like 96 in the world, and Ivory Coast are in the 40s. So we didn't expect them to win, but we put together a group of coaches to go out and to train with the Silverbacks, and also to play against them. So this was the Inshuti Rwanda, which means Friends of Rwanda, versus the Silverbacks game that we played on the last day of the tour.
Wow.
Okay, so back to Rwanda and schools. This is a school, a typical school in Rwanda, perched on the top of a hill in the middle of a huge tea plantation, and it was about a 2-hour moto drive from my home. So this was what I was doing the second time when I went out to Rwanda in 2018. I was actually traveling to schools to work with teachers. That, I think this again might be a video. Oh, no, maybe it's not. I can't remember if it's a video or not. I think it is a video. Can you check?
Yeah. Oh. No, I don't think it is.
No, okay, no worries. Yeah, so this is me and my trusty moto driver, Thomas. And he would come and collect me just as it was getting light at 6 a.m. and off we'd go to visit the schools, and we spent hours on the moto traveling through all sorts of different conditions.
It's different from a commute from Newport.
Just yeah. Now in Rwanda, there's a lot of mud. They have a lot of rain, and there's a lot of mud. And Thomas would say, "Mary, off," and I would jump off, and he would paddle through the mud, and I would sort of walk on behind and catch him up.
2 hours of that.
So yeah, it was interesting. Now I hope you can show this, because this is what we were up against. This is an English lesson where the teacher is teaching domestic animals: 1 cow, 1 goat, 1 sheep, 1 hen.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
And if you notice that the children are learning the words, but there's no visual sort of stimulation, so they don't actually know what a cow, a sheep, a goat, or a hen looks like. Okay. So this was then followed in the next slide is also a video with, he would call a child out to the front.
Some of the students watching this probably thinking, this is much better than Nick's lectures.
Well, yeah, I'm sure I wasn't going to say, Nick, draw their own conclusions. So this is how the lesson progressed then. The children were brought one by one to repeat. He does call another one out, so. Okay, I couldn't hear that, but again, they were just repeating 1 cow, 1 goat, 1 sheep, 1 hen. Now, the issue with that was that simply, I remember at the end of the lesson holding up a picture of a cow and asking the children, "What's this?" And they had no idea. And yet, as far as the teacher was concerned, these children now know cow, goat, sheep, and hen. So a lot of it was about drawing little pictures on flashcards and getting the kids to show things and that sort of thing. So this is what we were up against. This was a lesson on fractions, and the teacher gave an 8-year-old boy a very, very sharp machete and asked him to cut this piece of sugarcane into quarters. And it just made me, well, smile and think, yeah, health and safety, oosh. But having said that, it was a more practical lesson than some of the other lessons that I'd seen. Okay, so what I was doing was I was traveling to these schools, and then I was working with teachers and showing them how they could use bottle tops and resources and that sort of thing to just make their teaching a little bit more active. So if we sort of flick through the next few slides, this was just that one, go back one. This is the school bell, a stove,
oh wow,
of a tire, and this was the end of break time, so school bell. A few more of the slides. The next one shows me training. I was working with a group of Rwandans who were going out to train the teachers in the schools. So this was great. It wasn't me directly training the teachers. It was me training Rwandans. These were all professionals, very, very, very good, bright people, but hadn't really got the experience of using practical resources in school because that wasn't the way they'd been taught. So we were making lots of resources, and then they were going out and they were working with teachers and encouraging them then to use them in the school. So this is, again, some 100 square maths games that we played as a team first of all, and then they would go and deliver that in the schools. Again, another one, this is my team. You can see bottle top abacuses and just all sorts of things made out of junk and rubbish. And here's some of the kids playing some of the bottle top games, mental addition. And that's actually my spare room in a very large house in Rwanda, and some of the resources that I made over the course of the year.
But I know when you came in last year, I mean, it's just using recycled material. So again, you could do that in Wales. There's so much that we throw away, and that leads to cross-curricular learning then, to using recycled goods that can also benefit the planet as well. So
yeah, very much so. Okay, these are made from old milk bags. There was a US Aid were funding a sort of a school feeding program. So some of the very, very poor schools, the kids would have a bag of milk every day. And they were just chucking them out, and they were foil lined. So you open them up and you've got this fantastic material that would make really strong, cleanable, particularly important at the moment, that we can wipe all the resources down. And we were making all sorts of multiplication bingo games, tape measures, number lines, 100 squares, you name it. We made so much out of this waste resource.
wow.
And this was me with a group of kids. And just trying to get them involved. So thinking back to your one cow, one goat, one sheep, one hen, what I would do was draw a picture of a cow, a goat, a sheep and a hen, and stick them up around the room, and then ask the children to point to the cow, point to the goat, point to the sheep. And it was very easy just to see who was taking part, who wasn't, and who was pointing in completely the wrong direction. This is, again, another resource made from an old corks, juice containers that made fab dice, and those milk bottle tops. Again, just a very simple number game. And that was enough for a class of 60 kids. And again, just a few pictures of kids playing with bottle tops, making numbers. And again, the 100 square games that my team had learnt, we were going out and getting the kids to play them. Okay, so what is it like to be a primary school teacher in Rwanda? Well, they have what's called a shift system, because they've got so many children in Rwanda and not enough schools. The children either go to school in the morning or they go to school in the afternoon. So the first shift is 7:30 till 11:40, and then they all go home, and the second lot of kids arrive at 12:40 and stay until 4:40. I mentioned that teachers tend to teach subjects, although in the lower primary, which is P1 to P3, which is kind of equivalent to our year 2, 3 and 4, the teachers teach everything. They get around about £45 a month salary, and they don't apply for jobs. They'll get a job with the district, and then the district will allocate them a school. They may move them away from a school, and next year they might be somewhere else, and they don't seem to take into account where the teachers actually live. So the teachers will often have a long journey. So bear in mind, they've got to start teaching at 7:30 and they finish at 4:40. It gets light at 6 a.m. and it gets dark at 6 p.m. right the way through the year. Wow. So it's a pretty long day for them. And class sizes are usually 45 plus.
Wow.
So back to TTC Maruru then, because this is the school that you're going to be linked up with. It's kind of a sixth form college. The students are studying advanced level, but they're also getting a sort of a QTS, a qualified teacher status. This is the main hall, so this is what it looks like, and the students will all pack into this hall a few times a day, actually, for various things, whether it's a mass or whether it's a sort of assembly. Okay, this is Dieudonné in action inside Teacher Resource Centre, just doing a sort of fairly interactive game with some of the students. And this was the time that you spoke to the students, isn't it? So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I recognise the room. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is from about 2 years ago, I think.
Yeah. So this was actually when you did a Skype call.
Yeah.
From the, yeah, it was the very first one, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So this was a picture that was taken of them Skyping you.
And they made me dance. I'm still scarred by it emotionally.
That's right. I think
I remember them all.
There was ABBA singing going on as well, because I remember asking Dieudonné, what music did he like? And he told me he liked ABBA, and it took me a while to work out what he meant.
Yeah.
He knows the words to every single ABBA song, so I'm sure you can get him to perform when you next speak to him.
And dancing.
Yeah. So there's around about 5, there may even be more students there now. I think they've expanded. But when I was there, it was around about 500, 550 students. And this was the kitchen where they cooked the food. This was beans, I think, a huge amount of beans. And these were sweet potatoes that they were cooking in a massive cooking vat, which is heated by firewood. Yeah, so there's the firewood that they would chop up and heat underneath.
It's funny because I was chatting to Dieudonné just on WhatsApp over Christmas, and he said that all the children got a sweet potato with sugar on. That was their Christmas.
Yeah, Christmas dinner. Yeah.
Christmas dinner.
So this is the firewood that they collect in order to keep the kitchen going. And this is the outside the grounds. This is actually a view from the Teacher Resource Centre where I was. So these are the classrooms.
Spotless.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Rwandans sweep the dirt. You will find no litter and rubbish. In fact, they banned plastic bags, carrier bags, back in about 2004. I think it was a long time ago. They're meticulously clean. So again, this is just another view of the school. You can see they got a satellite aerial. So they do show Premiership football for the students in the main hall. Sports, very, very important. So this is their volleyball pitch. We've got 2 volleyball pitches. This is the main football field. There was also a netball pitch there because I started a netball team when I was out there. And this is the dorm. I think this is one of the boys' dorms. They had 2 boys' dorms and 1 girls' dorm when I was there, but they may have built another one. And I think this may be the girls' dorm.
I think the first time we spoke to them, our course raised some money. So students from our course wanted to help and raise money, and the money went to developing the girls' dorm, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a water tank. The girls'
dorm, water tank,
water, and it was so you provided a rainwater harvesting tank so that the girls actually had access to water.
Yeah.
This was what they call general house cleaning. And this was the contents of 1 dorm, all brought outside to spend a day in the sun, which is good for killing off any bugs and beasties, but also, general cleaning. The only thing was the rain can just turn on at any point. And I can remember this day, it was hilarious because we were all sat in the hall listening to a very, very long, very, very boring speech by a very important visitor. And it suddenly started to rain, and they've got corrugated metal roofs. And when it rains, you couldn't hear him anyway. And it was so funny because it's a few drops of rain started and instantly the hall emptied. And the students just piled on this, and just everything was dragged back into the door in about 2 minutes. It was great. Another shot of the grounds. This is actually, you can see the teachers' dorms where the teachers live, the single teachers. They have their own accommodation within, and Dieudonné was living there now, but he's since got married and he lives in his own house.
He's just had a little bit, well, not so little baby.
Yes, that's right. Yes, he's got his little girl now. So again, another shot of the huge sports fields where they do their
But huge comparisons to, obviously, within Wales, health and well-being plays a huge part, but over in Rwanda especially, sport is a huge part of the curriculum there. So
yeah, this is one of the dining halls. So you can see they pack them in, and they basically have rice and beans for lunch and rice and beans for dinner. And in the morning they have a sort of gloopy porridge. And that's it. That's what they have all the way through the year, apart from on Champagne Day, because the college, the Maris brothers, is set up by was originally started in the 1700s by a French guy called Champagne, who's now a saint. And on the they actually commemorate his death on Champagne Day, and they kill one of the college cows, and the kids get a piece of meat. And that's the only time throughout the whole year that they'll get any meat.
Wow.
So again, this is just more shots to show daily life, and they and oh, that was my netball post, the netball pitch that was half mud, half grass. This is the IT suite. Now, when I was there, the IT suite comprised of one computer, and I went in to watch an IT lesson, and the lady there that's Bernadette, who's the ICT teacher. And the lesson that they were doing, they were basically copying off the chalkboard a diagram of a keyboard and labeling it, and that was ICT. But now they've actually got enough laptops, I think, for one between two when they're doing their ICT lessons, although it looks like they may have one each there.
And whenever we Skype with them, their Wi-Fi is always so much better than ours.
Yeah.
So dear Donna usually like, come on, what's wrong with your Wi-Fi?
Yeah, no, that's certainly true. They've got Wi-Fi in the college, which is brilliant. But the students aren't allowed to have their own phones. You know, so they don't take advantage of the Wi-Fi. This is what happens when they're waiting to go to class. They have their own classroom that they stay in through the day, and the teachers come to them. Apart from when they were visiting the Teacher Resource Centre, they would come to me. They line up outside the class before lessons and after any breaks, and it's quite clever, really, because the teachers have to let the children into, or the students into the classroom. And it's pretty easy for the principals and the administration to see if a teacher's late, because the students will still be outside, and then the teachers get a bit of a rocket in because the students, they're late. Again, this is a general, I think this was taken very early in the term, so a lot of the students hadn't got their uniform, which is why they're in mixed clothes. You can see the statue of Mary there, because Mary refers to Mary, so she's very important, and she gets painted regularly, gets a spruce of paint, they do her up. I think the next shot shows the music room. So they've had various donations from link organizations. I think this was a German organization that donated some keyboards and organs for them. And this is the library. They'll have a library with the tattiest books ever. They won't throw anything away, though, even if they've got a book and it's a novel and they're missing pages 10 to 20. They won't get rid of it. It will stay. Again, another shot, a general shot of the classrooms.
Dear Donna was saying that last year that as part of their school day, they had to tidy up the school grounds.
Yes. Oh, yeah. The students are in charge of doing all the chores and all the cleaning and everything. Yeah, absolutely. They don't have cleaners there. It is the students that do it. So this is inside a typical classroom, sort of traditional, almost Victorian style. And then this is their timetable. So at 5:30 in the morning, they're woken up and they have a bucket shower, which is literally a bucket of cold water that they chuck over their heads. Between 6 and 7, they will either attend church, which is in the hall. So they'll sit through an hour of mass, or they have chores to do. So they'll be allocated. Some will go off and do cleaning. Some will go to the church service, and then it swaps around. At 7 o'clock, they all go to their classrooms and they sit in silence, self-studying. And then at 7:50, the lessons will start, and lessons go throughout the day until 5. At midday, they stop for lunch, which is rice and beans. And between 5 and 6 then is time of sport. After that, they have a shower. At 7, they have their evening meal, and at 8:30, they go to bed. On Friday, there's a disco, or they will show a film, or maybe some football or whatever, again in the main hall. But bear in mind that these people, these students, are sort of 16 to 25 years old, and at 8:30, they all go to bed. On a Saturday and a Sunday, it's 6 o'clock, they get up, they get a bit of a lie-in. and they get themselves up and ready, prepared prayers. They have an hour and a half of prayers. I think 8 a.m. is breakfast. I wasn't completely sure about that. And then from 8:30 until 12, it's manual work. So this is cleaning, chores, helping in the kitchen, maybe fetching water if the rainwater harvesting tanks are empty, all sorts of stuff. And then 12 o'clock, it's lunch. Between 1 and 3:30, they have various clubs. I remember there was scouts there. They had like international club. They have writers clubs. They form their own clubs and they manage them. And then there's sport. Between 5 and 7, they're actually allowed to sit in their classrooms and talk to each other, because a lot of the self-study is done in silence. And then at 7, there's an evening meal. 7:30 was a talent show. I sat through a few of those. Interesting, shall I say? And then 9 o'clock, woohoo, half an hour later, it's bedtime. And then on Sunday, very similar. I won't read through it. Movements are kind of clubs. Might be worth asking Dieudonné to explain the difference between that, because I was never quite sure. I think sort of guides and scouts may come under movements. I think it was slightly different from the other clubs. But there you go. That's their timetable.
Really interesting with the talent show, because Dieudonné told us last year about one of the students who became sort of a famous rapper, hip hop sort of star.
I've got that's in this presentation.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, Crezo. Yes.
Crezo. Yeah.
Crezo G. Yeah, I've actually got that. It's on one of the last slides, I think.
Okay.
So they go. Now, one thing about this, when I was out there and I saw this, I felt quite indignant and felt, oh, this is awful. These poor students, But they absolutely love it. They feel very honoured the fact that they are able to go to school, because education in Rwanda is free up until equivalent of our year 11. They're seniors, let's get this right, senior 9. So they do sort of what they call ordinary levels, O levels, which is kind of GCSEs. But then after that, to go on and to do advanced level, it costs. So these students have to pay. It's not a lot, but it is a lot, and a lot of the parents can't afford it. So they really do feel privileged, the fact that they are able to go to school and continue their education. So if you feel indignant on their part, don't.
Then that definitely comes across when we speak to them. They are really appreciative of just going to school, and they it's really clear that they love it there. So
yeah.
It's my favourite slide.
I think Crezo G must have been on one that I'd updated, Nick. We haven't got Crezo G. I think
because we talk about we've got a shared document, and Dieudonné's already put links on there.
Right.
So
okay.
Our students will see that.
Yeah, great. Anyway, Crezo G is well worth. He's actually the cousin of Donasian, who is our rugby development officer, who when we developed the rugby in Rwanda, he was our main guy. So Crezo G, yeah, he's worth following. He's a good bloke. Yeah, your favourite slide. Yeah, well, this was quite funny, because this is Mary, who, as I said, had recently been painted. And they dressed me up for Champagne Day, this very important feast day that they celebrate in June every year. And one of the students took me over and said, "We need a photo, Mary, because they all call me Mum." Yeah, I am Mum, and they used to tell me, you are our Rwandan Mum, or I'm the Welsh Mum. They're my Rwandan sons and daughters. And one of them posted me next to this statue, and he said, "Yes," he said, "it is Mary, the mother of Jesus, with Mary, the mother of many." So I'm not too sure what they're saying. And then this was a text message. I hear from my Rwandan friends and my former students every day. I will get a message from some of them. And this was one of them, one of my former students, and it was just very funny. I sort of, "Hi, my perfect mummy." Well, of course, yeah. Which I replied, "Hello," and I got a thumbs up. And then sometime later, "Hello, my friend," and hey. And then again, "Hello, my perfect mummy. How is Wales?" I did actually send this to my children. I have 2 children, and said, "Hey, which one of you has sent this?" I had the reply back from my son saying, "This is weird." But just lovely, friendly people. So there you go.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant. Thanks so much for that. So just for our year 2s, you think about, in that short space of time, the amount that we've learned just about Rwanda. Obviously, this week we're looking at humanities, ethically informed citizens, just in that short space of time, we've learned a great deal. Obviously, we're going to build up towards the Teams call at the end of the week. But I just want to say a huge thank you to Mary.
Pleasure.
And we were going to mention about if anyone wanted to get involved with the rugby, what's the best way for them to get involved? Is that to email me? Or?
Yeah, easiest way. Or if you go on the website, look for Friends of Rwandan Rugby.com, or we're at Rwandan Rugby on Facebook and Twitter, so you can send us a message that way, or via you can pass on my details, no problem. And yeah, I mean, really what we're looking for is anybody who may have links with rugby clubs. We're always collecting kits. Anybody who may be interested in joining us on a tour. Yeah, I mean, obviously at the moment it's all ground to a halt, but when we are up and running and we can get back out there. And the other thing, we are looking to develop resources. We've got some money from the Bill McLaren Foundation and the Barbars to train some teachers so that they're actually delivering some decent organised sport in school, because at the moment they're supposed to teach sport, but they don't. So we're looking to develop some really nice tag rugby resources. So if there's anybody out there with a sort of graphic design skills, or knows a bit about rugby coaching and would like to contribute to that, then that would be great. And
this would be perfect, because obviously we've been developing remote resources on video, so it could be just you do some of the drills on video, putting some really simple text on there. So if you can donate any time at all, again, get in touch with Mary or myself. And again, this would look brilliant on your CV in terms of how you've been able to help a charity to make some authentic resources for schools over there. So that'd be really good.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that we nearly did last year was that 2 of your students were going to go out to Rwanda and spend a week at the TTC. And you could have been involved with teaching and helping out with the English and just experience what a teacher training college in Rwanda is like. Sadly, for obvious reasons, it didn't happen, but it is something that I know could be, I could help you arrange, put you in touch with people. So if it's something that you think, yeah, I mean, whether it would be able to happen this year or not, I don't know, but something perhaps you can consider for the future. And the other thing to maybe look at is that VSO do offer a youth program for volunteers. Is normally sort of like 6 to 12 weeks placements. So if you're interested in that, then have a look and see.
Oh, it'd be amazing to go over. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thanks so much for your time.
Pleasure.
I'll give you a call on the mobile now. I'm going to end this recording.
Okay.
So if you've got any questions or anything for Mary, if you send them to me and I can pass them on. But thanks very much, Mary. Everyone's clapping now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers. I'll give you a call now.
Okay. Bye then.